What's happening? Whoa,
It's all gone.
man, nice. Look at that.
Yeah.
So did you have to pay twice as much to get the
Oh,
beard
dude,
done too?
so much. That's why I only get a haircut once every
And that's not even a
six
shave. That's
months.
like a nice trimming. So
Yeah, like it'll grow back. I have to get it cut short enough that I don't have to go again in a
mm,
few months.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have to go into like one side of the barber where they think you might be a terrorist, and then when they clean you off, like,
Nah.
oh no,
There's
he's
like
good, he's good,
it.
he's good.
Australia is like I think half Muslim now, bro. So we're pretty progressive here.
So they
Yeah,
say the same things happen.
they did they did a massive march across the Harbour Bridge, man, which is our iconic. That's like
Ah,
our and
the Anzac.
it's even bigger than that, man. Like the Harbour Bridge was like it was like a feat that Anyway, it was at the march for Palestinians across there the other day.
Ah.
But like it was like very anti. Was
So
it
were they
called
walking towards the
anti-Semitic?
ocean or against the ocean?
Well, they were walking into the city from North Sydney to South Sydney.
Oh, that's kind of backwards, isn't it? It's like from.
Yeah, but they were telling all the Jews to get out for sure.
Nice. Did it resonate with anybody? Are they going to make a
It
parade?
resonates with actually.
I
So
think Sydney has the world's largest, I think, gay and lesbian parade, right? Or all
yeah,
the
so the
acronyms.
rainbow flag's in there, but you could throw in the Aboriginal flag as well.
Ah, the
Yeah,
Aboriginal
so
flag doesn't want their own.
so they see themselves as the Palestinians. They've been convinced that
Mm.
the whites have stolen Australian land from the Aborigines, right? And so they're in
Wait. I
occupied
mean,
land. Yeah,
that is
yeah.
true. That is true.
In
They
some
did
degree,
steal it.
it was true that the Crown stole the land, but most of the Australians that are here were sent here as convicts. We didn't have a choice, so we're in the same boat. We was when it was stolen and put here, bro. We didn't.
Well, to be fair, you weren't in the same boat. The Aboriginals were already there. You were in a boat. So, I mean,
No. Yeah. So, but after those convicts were born here, we're
right,
definitely
right.
native,
Yeah,
right? Like
you're both there.
what else could we claim as our home?
Right. Yeah. So now basically the time has passed. It's all how to figure it out. But it's like
Uh,
the
It's
Native
not that time
American.
has passed. Is that they're using useful idiots now to turn people against each other when we should be working together to fight the Crown, to fight Bill Gates, to fight the Fed. Come
Bill
on, bro. Let's
Bill
stop
Gates
fighting each
is
other.
the Fed now. Nice, nice.
It's all of them. Isn't
Uh,
the Fed? Isn't the Fed like? Well, actually, that's your baby, right? The Fed. So sorry.
that's my monetary policy. They did just announce they're not going to raise interest rates, so this will create some fun stuff for Trump and Powell here coming up because yeah,
Yeah, we
inflation is
just
ticking up.
lowered
But
by a quarter of a percent. So
oh, in Australia they did the central bank.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah,
So if
England
yeah,
England did as well. So, but I mean that's going back almost a month and a half. But yeah, the rest of the world is seeing a slightly different issue than we are, but we're the ones raising tariffs. So this would be more inflationary on us than it would be everyone else. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know. This week I'm super sore, so I'm sitting kind of in this weird rocking chair because I did a leg day and then I played basketball last night. I still play basketball twice a week,
you never
and on
play
Wednesday
basketball and
nights
leg day on the same day, man.
it was awful. And we play at like 9 at night until midnight. And even when I was stretching, I was like, I cannot move. Like this is so bad. And only 10 people showed up. So we played till 11. And by the end of it, I was just like, oh, so hammered. So I am definitely sore today. It was even typing, lifting my arms. My arms are so weak. And then like getting up, I feel like an old man today. So I need like a cane to make it through. So
It's like when you do arms and then you try and shower the next day and you're like a T-Rex in the shower.
that's exactly what is. It is crazy because I mean I definitely felt it when I got over 40, but still to be able to play basketball twice a week, I have to work out every day basically. Otherwise, it'll take me like a week to recover from playing basketball once. That and then if I don't stretch, I mean I will for sure find some injury or something. So now I do. I do more stretching sometimes than I do even playing the sport. I don't even like basketball that much, but I tried to play tennis, and
What else is there to play in Texas?
nobody would really play with me. So it was hard to get like a group of people together. For a while, they were doing flag football. I've never played football, but I really liked it. But it's a hard group to get together. You have to get more people, and the field has to be nice, and the temperature has to be great. So I've sort of by default landed on basketball. And my own father did play basketball till he was like early 70s. So he played once a week at least until then. So,
Yeah, all my boys are
so
playing basketball, but two of them are too short, and only one of them is probably tall enough.
they're going to have to eat some meat if they're going to take that anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know what they get. I don't know where they get their protein. Bananas. They eat lots of bananas, I think.
Bananas, banana
Yeah.
protein, rice and beans. Nice. All right. Welcome to the conversation where we unpack the wild, interconnected chaos shaping the world, including the population's decline and all the reasons for it. Your hosts, Joe Edgar and Ethan Krok. Today, we're going to dive into some of the societal beliefs, norms, and myths that create generational decision making for better or for worse. So, Ethan, this is your topic this week. So, hit us off with some of you. You had a great example that I think is
Oh, yeah.
one.
I just remember going to school, and I mean, I'm sure America's very similar. The federal government has a lot of interest in education, and so I feel like, I was being groomed to understand that there was too many people in the world. Um, you know, and when I remember the thing that stands out the most, we talked about this before, but there's the China policy, right? I remember going to school. I mean, every year there would be at least one teacher in one of my classes that would bring up the fact that the population is blowing out of control, and using China as an example, that they can only have one child. And um, yeah, there's no wonder that we're seeing the population declining and birth rate declining, when from such a young age we're already indoctrinating our children in this Western culture, that there's too many of us, that you just need to, kind of make sure that there's going to be enough room for everybody before you decide to have any kids. I mean, I know that there probably was still, up until that point, it looked like the population was blowing out of control. But at some point it becomes something where it may have been a fact at one point, and then now it's become this cultural lie we keep repeating that everyone believes, and no one fact checks. There was no fact checking, when I went to
Well,
school.
it is a hard one to fact check because this is going back to 1960s with the book The Population Bomb that really started this movement called zero population growth. And it was just as you said. I mean, everybody believed that we're going to run out of resources, and so almost everything you could point to it being overpopulated. Like, oh, prices on food, that's overpopulation. Even global warming, you could say is overpopulation. So
The
in
greenhouse
those
effect was
days,
because of
yeah, the greenhouse.
overpopulation.
So everything could be pointed to this population, overgrowth. But it's hard to know because at that time they were trying to put together basic, simple math, and it's so logical. I mean, because you can say, "Oh yeah, we only have one planet. There's only so many resources, so people are a liability." And all of a sudden, you don't think people are an asset in the sense of being able to solve any problems. So then it's like, we're doomed. I mean, so
Yeah,
what
but
other?
well, maybe there was the expectation that there wouldn't be continuing wars as well. Maybe that was, there's, I mean, like, I'm saying we live in the same kind of vacuum of common sense now, where you've got all these different competing interests that are believing that everyone is also going to play by the same rules moving forward, or everyone's being honest moving forward. When I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, but back when I went to school, it wasn't just, I mean, we have a lot of the same things there, but it wasn't just the overpopulation. In Australia, we're very, we have the Great Barrier Reef, which is, I think it's the biggest living organism on the planet or something like that. And so, they told us back in the 80s that we had 20 years left of the reef.
It's gonna
And
die.
we've still got 20 years left right now. So all up, that's at least 40 years. So like that, there's like I
They
don't
didn't
get
tell you
where the
what 20 years. They just said you'll get
well
20 years. So
well. So part of the problem is the wild, outlandish claims that somehow we come up with. The second part of the problem is that we all believe it. And I could compare it to the weather here on the Gold Coast, and I don't know what the weather's like in Texas. Is it pretty predictable where
it
you are,
finally
the weather?
rained today. It's very predictable. It's always going to either be hot or nice. So very rare. I mean, we have had some ice storms, but rare.
Okay, well, if you actually go by the history of most weather forecasters, I believe they're wrong almost 75% of
Oh,
the
yeah.
time. So, like, they're right a quarter of the time. Most of the time, you have a better idea by putting your head out the window and looking what the weather's going to be. But the thing is, we still believe in it. We still set our calendars according to the Bureau of Weather. And not just that, we know for a fact that the weather could be wrong. The weather could change at any
Yeah, but
moment.
is
And yet
weather a
we
good
still we
example?
still we still use similar models to predict the weather hundreds of years from now. And we expect to change our behavior so we can avoid the weather patterns that will cause in 100 years from now when we don't even know the weather patterns we're causing today.
Fair enough. If you're saying there's implications on what it'll do to the weather in the future, I get that one. But they are getting much better at predicting short-term weather. So I have my
There must be
radar
more
app.
people looking out the window at the media of weather, at the Bureau of Weather.
It's crowd sourcing
Yeah,
weather.
they're using
Everybody
people's
looks out. It's like
phones. Yeah,
that's
take
how
a
they predict where
screenshot.
it's going to rain. It's raining here. It's raining here. Yeah, no.
Yes.
I mean, I think they are getting better at weather, but I mean, I do get what you're saying. Is like, how can you predict 20 years from now? It's hard, and that is really it. Is so many of these claims are such a long-term projection, and there's so many competing theories. So how does one theory end up being the one that becomes normalized over the other?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the time it is money, and a good example of that would be the dairy industry, and what they did with milk and cheese. And I don't know what it was like in America, but to make sure that we weren't
About
overpopulating the
like the
planet, and
got
we're
milk
only
commercials.
yeah, making sure that we only had healthy humans, we all had to have like a glass of milk every day.
Mm. Uh,
And I think the main thing was that they were trying to promote it as the calcium that you were getting from it. And I think now studies show that the calcium in milk actually leaches the calcium in your bones. So it was doing the exact opposite of what they were saying it was doing. And the reason why they did it is because they had excess. They had excess. They needed consumption. They
mm.
needed dairy to be consumed.
Well, you make me think of the biggest grift that was exposed, and that's like Cool Joe Camel, the cigarettes, the cigarette
Yeah,
industry that kept pushing like, no, cigarettes are great, they're good,
the
even
healthy
though
cigarettes.
more and more things were showing like, I think there's a correlation to cancer, and they just kept pushing cigarettes and pushing cigarettes, and it took a while before. When I grew up in Oregon, every restaurant would have smoking and non-smoking, and it did. I do recall growing up thinking like, oh, this is nice because there's a place for the non-smokers, so it's like a healthy. And then when I went to California, where smoking was banned outright, I was shocked because I was like, oh, none of these smell anything like cigarettes. So I realized that non-smoking and smoking means just smoking because the whole plate, you can't really stop it. It's going to smell like smoke everywhere. So what I thought was a healthy way to manage smoking and non-smoking was actually a joke. That secondhand smoke is just as bad. And so eventually we caught on to this grift that was exposed. But aren't most of these stories that are told to us like zero population growth? They ultimately put in a corner, and it seems society has an aversion to risk to where we love the boogeyman. And
Yeah.
one example, just to explain what I mean, to go into a bunch of these, is social media now makes one bad story can go anywhere and everywhere. In the US this year, if the rate continues as it is, we will set records for the lowest murder rate in US history.
Well
But
done,
you would
Cash.
not. Yeah, right. But you would not think that based on, nobody talks about that, right?
Yeah,
So we
based on the
need a villain.
TV.
We need a villain. And when there's a villain, everyone is terrified. Like the industry for being scared is huge. Think of like every
Yeah.
alarm, every camera, every door lock, the police that you hire. I mean, there is definitely something. We're even talking about a nuclear arsenal, the army. And in many cases, it goes unused, but the idea of fear drives a lot of movement. And so this idea of having a villain, someone you can point to, like population growth is going to end the world. And if that's the villain, it's like all of a sudden everybody can kind of get around that. So then what are some of these other villains? I was
Yeah.
thinking of some.
Well, and I think sometimes, yeah, just having that villain, like you're saying, it's the scapegoat for everything, right? So it allows you to, if you make a mistake somewhere, you've devalued the value of life isn't as much, because you can say that, well, this is all about population control, whether it's vaccine rollouts or whatnot. But
I knew that
yes.
was going to come in. I knew it was going to squeeze in there.
Sorry, but what was your last question? Because
Well, I
that
was
was
just thinking about some of these grifts that have happened. And again, growing up in
yeah.
Oregon, I think one of the biggest ones was really not that the spotted owl was not to be protected, but in Oregon, there was a big movement to protect these spotted owls. So if you saw an owl, you had to, it was something like a 5 mile radius, you could no longer log there. So then there were sightings of spotted owls happening everywhere. And my tiny little town had 5 mills. It has no mills now. The mills dried up and they were all gone from the spotted owl. But it's the same movement that started during the 90s and even part of early 2000, where it was really like, stop using paper bags, stop buying Christmas trees, you're deforesting the world. And then you find out, like in Oregon, I'm like, wait a minute, if you stop buying Christmas trees, guess what they do to the Christmas tree groves? They clear cut them and leave it as raw land. So buying Christmas trees actually helps grow more trees. And then same
Yeah.
thing with, you find out paper bags are a very reusable resource. And so then they pushed us to go to plastic. And now, of course, the new trend is hating plastic, even though they found that garbage island in the ocean.
Yeah.
There's a whole ecosystem now around that
Created
island.
a
So
new
it cracks me up
species. Yeah.
because it's always like, what's the new villain? So now everybody's like, well, maybe plastic's not a villain. I don't know.
Yeah, so the difference between a passion purchase and a panic purchase is a passion purchase you don't have to buy. A panic purchase you have to. Like, people didn't even use toilet paper, and now they're out clearing the stores with toilet paper because they're
Are you trying
panicking,
to say
right?
toilet paper is not or
I'm
it's a
saying
passion purchase?
you can do your business. You can do your business and then clean up in the shower. I mean, why do you need? Why
I
do you
am
need to
never
rub?
shaking. I am
Why
never
do you need
shaking
to
Ethan's
rub
hand
cloth?
again.
No, I've got a shower head. You just, you put it around there. You wash
Is that
yourself
what
off.
it
It's
is?
like, I use paper. Actually, I don't even use paper, man. I use
All of a
wipes. And you know
sudden,
what?
your
I use
two-tone
wipes.
paint is explained.
Dude, this is how dumb Americans are. I use wipes because I was in America when they panic buyed. I was in America. I use wipes. I don't need toilet paper, rips my bumhole anyway. So I use the baby wipes.
The wipe. You mean like the moist with the
Yeah,
lotion?
the towelettes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh,
They
that's high
never
end.
sold
That's
out.
real high end. That
They
is
never
definitely.
sold out. They never sold out. I never
Oh,
had to worry.
I see.
I never had to
Everybody bought all
panic
the
buy
toilet
those.
paper, but you're like,
The toilet paper went because those things. I'll tell you why they went. It was panic buy because those things take up 3 feet by 3 feet of shelf, and so if you take 3 packets of those, it looks like half of
it
them are
looks
gone.
like it's gone.
And people are like, "Well, I want toilet paper." Boom, and it's like this having this resource limited resources. The same thing. People panic
Right.
buy. People think they're going to miss out.
Scarcity.
Scarcity.
Yeah,
That's
scarcity.
the one.
Right.
And yeah, there was a big boogeyman that
Well, it was proven, just to hit on that point, it was proven
Is
that most of the U.S.'s paper is actually made here. So we did not ever have a shortage in paper production for toilet paper,
No.
paper towels, or any of it. The only shortage was the fact that everybody was buying it out. But other than that, they're like, well, the same amount of supply is available. There's no need to buy it out. So it was panic purchasing. The ones that I think that are cyclical that everyone kind of is used to and they're so exposed now is like a diet. There's so many diets, from the keto to the What's the keto one? Is the keto the low carb? What's the other one that's also popular where they just eat brisket fat? Um, but
I don't know.
there's
Again, it's like veganism. The point that the vegans, and this is another villain that looks like a hero, but people love to be vegan and they think that they're not killing animals, but most vegans are eating soy-based plants. And so the difference between a cow farm and a soy farm is a cow farm, they don't kill every single living thing. With a soy farm, they kill everything, every insect, every bird, every lizard. Um, so, on the surface side of it, being vegan, I'm not killing any animals. Really, vegans are killing more animals than anybody else.
I don't know if that's true, but I do know that the soy farms, they are massive and destructive, and so they do limit wildlife in there. So that's where
Well, and
you
because you
can't get
can't have
away from it.
anything.
Yeah,
You
exactly,
can't have anything
exactly.
on these things. So,
Yep. But in those diets, I mean, there used to be, it was like fat-free diets. That was a big one, right? Fats are bad. And then lo and behold, we find out like, okay, well, actually there are a lot of good fats. Omega-3s are needed. And so we finally got away with that, but they replaced them with sugars for a while. So we said, okay, that one's gone. We have nuclear power. We talked about it last week. That one's still out there being scared. We're talking about Taiwan shut down their last plant, and the U.S. is finally just now thinking like, okay, well maybe nuclear power is not so bad. So that was a villain for a long time after 3 Mile Island. Uh, Eggs and cholesterol. That was a big one, right?
this is
Eggs
funny too.
would drive up your cholesterol.
Eggs are a great one too, because me and my daughter, if we do breakfast, well, if I do breakfast, she's doing eggs a lot of the time, but I'll do eggs with her, right? And it's funny because there's so many parents out there, like they're giving their kids shit every morning for breakfast. They're literally giving them
Oh, you mean like
a
cereal?
bag of sugar and
Yeah,
then some
that's the U.S.
processed milk, maybe even some long life shit. We'll put that in there too. And then here you go, kid. Use that as your fuel to start out the day.
How does Frankie take her
I do them
eggs?
scrambled.
Scrambled. A little bit of salt.
Yeah, a little bit of milk in there too.
Mix up a little. I've been
Yeah,
doing
nice and
I
nice and creamy.
I actually really like Over Easy, but none of
Yeah.
my kids have ever liked it. So when Logan went to college, he was trying new foods, and he's one who has had a very limited palate. He'll basically only eat burgers, fries, and pizza. So when he came back for the first time, I was like, you want to make an egg? He's like, sure. I was like, over easy? And he's like, all right. I'm like, oh man, he's expanded. So I make him over easy. Why is he? It's like, I don't know what this is or why someone would eat it that way, but no, I'm not eating that. So he's not over easy. He's definitely a scrambled kid. So he hasn't changed yet. So, but yeah, I'll
Scrambled's
take it.
easier.
So then there's
Scrambled's easy. You
cholesterol. There's
mix it, throw it in.
But then why did we take what is this societal movement to have basically a villain? It's like we become very risk averse, where we say, okay, well, it is better to protect from a possible evil than it is to basically think through it and say, well, is this that bad? So no matter what it
I,
is, it's like avoid the worst thing. And then it becomes a societal norm in the sense that it's like you want to present yourself to the world that you're doing something. I think of startups. If you follow
yeah,
any startup pitch, the startup in the middle, at the end of the pitch, the whole wrap up is like, and we're changing the world, right? And there's a big joke like every startup is changing the world, and none of them are. So, of course, except for mine, of course, we're changing the world.
yes.
But it's always changing the world. So by finding this villain and saying you are fighting against this villain, you now get the status symbol of you are doing something good for the world. And it almost becomes a trend from there where everybody wants to jump on this wagon.
There would be that, but even at the basic level, we all need deadlines for motivation.
Mm.
Because if there's not a deadline for motivation, there's no need for change.
And by that,
Right?
you mean like the world is going to end tomorrow or next week.
Whether it's preppers and doomsday, because most people believe in some kind of doomsday religion. Whether you're Muslim or Jew or Christian, or even believe in aliens, at some point, there's going to be an end of the world, right? So you got to, that motivates you. But even besides that, I think about the times when I've had a goal or a deadline, and then there's a sense of urgency. If there's no goal or deadline, then she'll be right, mate. I can take care of that tomorrow. And
Mm-mm.
so I think sometimes there's good intentions when these villains are created. But then once these villains are created, they turn into a monster of their own, and they can end up doing the exact opposite of what they're intended for,
Well, if that's the case, then that means there is an ultimate agenda because they would say, all right, here's a villain. Everybody's afraid of it. But if I need something to be done in a certain amount of time, then if I give it a timeline, all of a sudden I have an agenda. And by that, I would mean something that's whether it's corporate or political sway that can jump on top of something to get it done. For example, if you wanted to say the sky is falling, and it's going to happen in 5 years, then you could get a nice political movement if you jump on the sky is falling plan, and all those people will support you and you get into office under the sky is falling. So, in that vein, what are some of the political groups that basically have driven us? And then what are the effects? Because we are into an age where there's so much information. So I would say 40 years ago, even when some people were kind of like, well, some things don't add up. Say when they first realized maybe population
yeah.
decline or
So
population overgrowth isn't good. But once you learn
this
something isn't true, what do we do with it?
this kind of goes back to the gatekeeping, um, and ultimate truth, I guess. But
Mm.
so ultimate truth or authority is really something that is okay for now, but is going to change, right? Because, and this is what I'm saying. Like, and this is what AI will be as well. AI will be correct until it's not. But science, a lot of science. Let's take the relativity, for example, right? Because that's the most popular theory, I think. It's the thing we base most of everything on. And even that, Einstein and everyone else and everyone who's a scientist who knows anything much about relativity knows that it's not correct, right? There's like, it has to be fixed with some patches, right? And so, but what the theory of relativity is the theory of relativity is what they all agreed we could all accept. That's what that science is. So that truth is the reality of what we're all capable of understanding, or at that point, right? Maybe we're understand. Maybe we can understand more or comprehend more at this time in human history, and maybe that's why you've got scientists that believe they have a new theory of everything, right? That kind of that complements and explains Einstein's theory of
Are
relativity.
you
And
questioning
I'm saying that's
science?
going to be well. So, this is going to be the same in everything. In medicine, you've got treatments, right? All different kinds of treatments. But you've got some treatments that are recognized and standardized, and you've got some treatments that are not so much. And sometimes the guise of that is regulation and safety. But really, the reality is a lot of people could lose their money if it turns out there's a better way to fix people,
One of
or
them that I
if we could fix people with preventative care, the same thing.
right. One of them I was thinking about while you and I were together was the Y2K. And
Yeah.
Y2K was pushed so much that everything's going to shut down. It's going to be like the biggest default. And there was a chance that it could have happened. A lot of people fixed it, but what it became was everyone was basically marketing to buy new software, update software. So many companies made money on selling and embracing the Y2K scare. And for those who are too young, year 2000 was, for those living in 1999, you really did think like stock markets were going to crash, planes were going to fall out of the sky, anything that had any type of software was going to cease to work. And so you were just in a panic trying to fight the villain. You were buying anything that corporate, I'd say America and Australia, but the corporate world was selling you to try to prevent everything in your life basically ceasing to work. So you didn't want to lose any money. It was definitely a risk averse time. So there's one I think is an example where you definitely had a group. I don't remember any political movement. Like it was the year of George Bush and Al Gore. And so I don't remember
So
them. I wasn't in the US during that. I don't remember any political movement behind it, but I definitely remember a lot of corporate agenda to try to sell anything for a Y2K
yeah,
fix.
Y2K is what we're seeing with AI today. It's exactly the same thing, right? It's just a organizing of how we use computers and how we store information. But yeah, that's a good example, because this is what they're really doing, and this is the agenda, Joe. It's to keep us in a consumer model, because we had everything we needed 50 years ago. 50 years ago, we had everything we needed. We had what's in the house doing the dishes. We had cars. We had electricity. We had phones. We had all these things that they worked. We didn't need anything. Mum could stay home and raise the kids. Dad could go out and work, come home and have beer in the evening, and everything was fine. But somehow they convinced us we needed a new car. We needed a faster phone. And if we don't have these things, we're dead. We're missing out. So the AI
But
is
this
the
is
same.
before smartphones. This is before smartphones.
Yes.
So if you think of how many things were on a computer then compared to now, it was like nothing used a computer then. We were convinced we had to
Yeah.
buy
Well, there's no
everything.
need. There was no need. What? And it's funny, because I remember, and it works the opposite way. I remember, I don't know. Do you remember going to my folks' house when they had a home theater? Have you ever been?
Oh
No.
yeah, yeah.
They had like a library of DVDs on the wall, and I think one concern of mine, as a kid, was like, how am I going to store all these DVDs? Figure out, right? And like my kids are like, what's a DVD player, right? And because we don't, we needed a DVD player. Now we don't need it again.
Right.
Like,
But that's
and
technology.
that's like, we're gonna need it. We're gonna need
Right.
it right now, and then we're not gonna need it again.
But once you learn, like for instance, let's just use Y2K. After we found out that Y2K, nothing happened. It was anticlimactic to say the least. It was like nothing happened. There was absolutely, we
There
were
might have been
waiting
a
for
few
like at
bank
least have
errors in your
some.
favor. I'm sure there's a few. Smash and grabs.
My bank account had like 5 extra zeros. It was just
I've
on the
seen a
wrong
bunch of
side
movies
of
about it. I'm sure someone robbed a casino or something. Come on.
right. But then once we learned, like once we now understand that we actually need more people on this planet versus less, or maybe that is the new conscript. Once we no longer or find out that the villain may have actually been the victim, what does that do to society? You would think it would mean like, all right, let's address it, but the impact actually stays. For
I think
instance,
that's what
now
happens.
fewer people are even having children. We now know that population decline, we're not going to run out of resources. And so it's very clear we can handle more people. In fact, it's good for us. And yet no one has really jumped back in to say, oh, well, maybe we need, there's no movement for plus population growth. It's all still.
Yeah. Well, there's Elon Musk. He's out there. He's out there advocating.
He's even
And
trying to get
he's
to another
leading,
planet.
he's leading by example as well. So, there's one thing
Well,
to talk the talk.
he
He's
runs
walking
another
the walk.
villain because he's the one who says, well, we're eventually going to deplete this planet. We're going to have to go to the next. So he's actually still running on the villain idea that eventually will deplete the resources here.
That's how.
I don't know why Mars would be. It's like if we have to fix the Mars ecosystem to live there as humans, why don't we just fix this ecosystem? And I'm all for planetary travel, but
That's the panic buy. That's the panic buy mindset. The whole. He's still. That's the only way he gets funding, right? Like
yeah.
with Musk, like I think he's a champion for some things, for many things, but he's also a gatekeeper, and he's not being 100% honest, and he's creating villains for us to. So we will follow him. Yeah, it's like most of these villains, right? Like the actual presentation of the concern is right, but it's the reaction to the concern. It's the overreaction to the concern. It's the making rules that benefit you in some monetary way as a to the potential concern.
You think your parents have still not recognized some of the grifts that are out there? Do you think there's still generational grifts that still separate us?
Oh yeah, we all do, and it's like it's not just cultural, it's societal as well, right? Like so, Like rich people, a lot of rich people won't waste their money on things, but they will waste their money on things, so, and then poor people are the same. Poor people don't have money to waste, but yet they waste their money
They'll
on
waste
things.
their money. Right.
So I see a lot of fat poor people. They'd probably have some money if they didn't eat all the time. And I don't mean to fat shame. I'm just saying, like, it costs to maintain.
Well, I only cut you there because food deserts are real, and so if you eat, it's actually you eat cheap, and it will unfortunately, you'll get overweight. Whereas it's not that it's super expensive to eat healthy, but it does take a lot of knowledge. Like you have to say, okay, I'm not going to eat at the fast food restaurant.
Yeah, it's discipline. It's still a calorie game. It's still discipline. It's still a calorie game.
Right.
You could be eating healthy food and you could still get fat. You just don't do it.
Right. But it is true. The more wealthy you are, the more time you have to think about it. And then you can be like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to exercise and eat healthy. So you do have,
People it's like everything else too, right? People have, unless there's a villain, people aren't, there's no focus to know what the baddie is, right? So, soda is probably the biggest villain in America, right?
Right.
Soda's probably
sugar.
Yeah, it's
right.
probably just killing everyone, right? Like, forget face masks and bloody vaccines. Like, bloody do something about the sugar in your sugar water because, that's cholesterol, that's diabetes.
But some villains,
that's cocaine in your drink.
But some villains have turned out to be villains, and so that's what makes it somewhat. So I recall in Australia 20 years ago, and I know it's still the same today. But then it was a real push to have every kid. If I didn't go to school there, so correct me if I'm wrong. But if you went to school without your hat, you would be sent home. And the hats all have a thing that go down your back, and it was because
the floppy back. Yeah.
Yeah, the floppy back. So I assume that's still the case, yeah?
Yeah, man. Well, you don't have to have a flappy back. They've got the full brin now,
Right. Oh, gotcha.
The fisherman's
Those
style,
are nice. Little cork. Little cork hangers keep the flies away.
No, don't have to keep the flies out of your face. No.
I still have one of those. But it turns out the ozone layer was getting depleted, and we've now had international recognition. And so all of them come together to say, okay, we're going to cut back on CTCs to keep the ozone. And then we talked about smoking. Turns out that did cause lung cancer. This is back.
But see, I'd say another villain, though, you bring up another perfect villain. Another villain is regulation, right? Because it's a double-edged sword. So regulation is supposed to provide guidance and safety, but at the same time, it's always a one solution fits all, which that's not scientific and that's not based in any reality. And that's why you have, you have issues when you try and what's the word, when you force? What do they do? When you mandate?
Mandate, force, require.
Yeah, like I think everything
codify.
As a human, like it's funny because we're always being told what we can and can't do, but I there's some kind of responsibility on us. If we've been educated, we still should be able to make the choice. As adults, we can still smoke a cigarette. We can still have beers. Like there's still things we could do. Again, with the soda, they're not telling anyone they can't. I think maybe in New York you can't buy soda more than like 20 something gallons at a time.
They did take away certain size cups. That's pretty.
But like that's not illegal. You can drink soda all day, right? So it is funny to me how some things are beyond.
Well, isn't it your dad that says,
to,
if God would have wanted you to drink water, he wouldn't have made Coke? Isn't that your dad?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, like because that's what he says. No, I'm the one. Like when people say, "I asked you want to drink like water," I'm like, "What? Like from the toilet?" Because it's the same water, right? It's the same water that's in the toilet that comes out of your tap. That's what you're drinking. Okay.
So what about the new villains of the future? Because the one you already brought up, which is AI. AI is going to take over the world. It's going to seize all our computers. It's going to take all of our jobs. There's different ways that you can put AI as a villain. Some other ones I thought of are GMOs.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about why GMOs are an interesting thing. Another one is the downplay of carbon capture. And that is really greenhouse gas effect is the villain. And the only way to solve this is through alternative energy. And yet there's so much technology going in right now for carbon capture that it really kind of gets downplayed. So those are the three big villains, greenhouse gases, GMOs, and AI, that I could think of that are kind of the new ones of the future that everyone is in a panic outside of the obvious ones that we have. The US now down in Venezuela. We have constant threats from Putin of nuclear war. So other than actual villains, I think those are the ones that are the new societal villains. And
and it's going to be more, but there's a real push for. It's been like this for a while too, because I remember when I moved to the States, I lived in Arizona where there was lots of preppers, and so they were telling me about the imminent collapse of the American dollar. And so I think Bitcoin and digital currency, USDC, whatever you call it, I think all these things are also going to be like a AI Y2K. It's going to be a panic buy situation where they're going to show you signs, and it's time to switch over to a better system. And and I think they're going to do that to avoid.
I see what you mean. Where you're saying you got to avoid AI being able to take over your computer and your phone. Get the new AI blocker. Sounds like
I'm just that.
So sounds like I should make a company and put an infomercial in right there.
Dude, this is how AI is already doing it. That's not even that. Like, it's subtle. It's subtle. Like, you're a CEO. Like, it's subtle. That there was a company here. Yeah, it's a bank, Commonwealth Bank. They laid off 25 call center workers because they thought they could handle an even better practical volume with AI, robot agents. And within like a month or two, they had to re-employ them all. Because the AI didn't deliver it as promised. But the point is that companies are already pulling the trigger on certain technologies that probably haven't even really been vetted and tested yet.
Right.
And it's because they're being panicked by, because they're being told that if you're not using AI, your competition is. And if you're not getting familiar with AI, you're going to get left behind, like not being able to read or write.
And a lot of these companies in AI, they're spending so much money. They are not profitable. They do bring in revenue, but none of them are profitable. And it's gobs of money. We're talking about a $500 billion. They're not raising the money. It sounds like it's not going anywhere, but that's Sam Altman's big ambition as part of like $2 trillion to spend on AI. It's like, what? And so the amount of money that they're putting towards AI is monstrous. And it's right now it is just one big villain, and it's almost like the villain industrial complex. It's like,
yes, this is what the tech guys. This is how the tech guys are getting the money from the politicians. Yeah. They're scaring the shit out of them with AI.
All right. Well, we just saw now, because these AI chips and the drive, that the United States government is looking at making a $10 billion investment into Intel, and that's all because of the villain industrial complex and being afraid of what AI could do and wanting to be on top of it and keep the industry and demand for Intel here in the US. So it's definitely taking off. I also mentioned GMOs. I don't know how much you followed about GMOs. When I was with Petros, we invested in a couple of companies, and I got exposed to kind of how plants play a role in clean energy. I was a bit surprised myself. And learning what is considered GMO and how they make a lot of GMOs was an eye-opener for me, because you say GMOs and you immediately think like, oh, we don't want that. It's terrible. It's not good for you. It's not natural. And then you find out like there are almost no fruits and vegetables today that are not GMOs. And that is only because corn did not start out as being corn. Potatoes used to be poisonous. And to make a GMO, they really are just grafting in various different plants. Most of the GMO production is not like made in a lab of some special chemicals. It's literally grafting different plants together to make different strains. So they'll find a plant that ends up being resistant to a certain pesticide or something. So they take this one and they can now use it as a strain. So you find out it's not as fancy and high tech as you think, GMOs. And GMOs have a lot of benefit. And so there's a lot of vitamins to be had. There's a lot of benefits to making a larger harvest. So just in feeding the world more and being resistant to a number of pesticides, GMOs, in my opinion, are going to be one that later we look back and find out that, oh, GMOs are actually amazing. We just have to figure out which ones we want. Now, I'm not saying Monsanto's, who is using GMOs to make plants that don't produce seeds, I'm not in favor of that. I think if you buy a plant, you should be able to get the seeds from it. But I do think GMOs are going to be one, in my opinion, that I think later we find out like these are pretty amazing. Another one is greenhouse gas effect. And that's one that is big right now. Now, what's weird is I do see a lot of people since the MAGA movement happened, so many people are posting about global warming. And I always have to tweet out and correct them. I was like, well, the world is warming. Global warming is a fact. You can debate greenhouse gas effect, but
they're coming out of an ice
age
age for sure, 10,000 years ago, right?
Right. So the Earth is getting warmer. Now the question is does that mean we were already supposed to? Florida was supposed to be underwater. A few other places were supposed to be underwater. We do have one island that is now most of the water, or most of the island is being evacuated. But for the most part, we have not seen any of the major impacts. In fact, they've now had Antarctica, the ice sheet actually slightly grew. And so there is some conundrums that still seem to be out there of how this is. But yet it is still the big monster villain, is that it is man-made. And so if it is man-made, nonetheless, I mean, I'm all for, I think we pollute. When we had COVID, we had that little break. It was amazing. And I just loved it. Yeah. And I think cars pollute.
Until we throw
so I don't
those
want any
masks
pollution
in the ocean.
That's true.
all the masks and all the used PPC tests, whatever they're called.
That's
yeah, no,
but,
I think SeaWorld is a similar thing to what you're saying too, right? Because it's like SeaWorld got a lot of bad press because someone wanted to make a movie.
Free Willy story. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it called? Blackfish, right? It was about the person that got hurt working at SeaWorld. And all of a sudden, SeaWorld's a monster, like they don't realize SeaWorld is like one of the biggest ocean, if not the biggest ocean, like guardians, conservationists on the planet. If there's no SeaWorld, there's no money to save the fucking whales, right? So, like there's
then they found out that Free Willy had a terrible life, and he actually should have gone to somewhere like a SeaWorld versus the Mexican little pool he was living in, but SeaWorld or somewhere would have been great for him.
And so that is what we should be focusing on, right? We should be focusing on the care of these animals. But we shouldn't be trying to cause knee-jerk reactions and completely ban something because we don't fully understand everything that's going on there. Like these activists that want to ban SeaWorld, they don't understand that SeaWorld, there's no other way. Like with anything, there's no other way to get funding unless you have attention, right? You need people to care of it in order to get money. And so what SeaWorld does is SeaWorld show aquatic and marine life to a bunch of people who would never see it in real life, and it gets them to care about it.
Well, this is like hunting elephants. The same thing. If you outlaw hunting elephants, absolutely, then unfortunately what you have is a whole bunch of poachers killing elephants. But if you allow there to be a market where all of a sudden you allow hunting of elephants and you have to do it by permit, and it's very expensive, well, all of a sudden, all that money comes into helping conserve elephants. And you see the elephant population kind of thrive. So there is kind of this idea
where the rich are going to need more
animals
to shoot. The rich are going to need more animals to shoot, and it's like if we had the fishing guy on, he would be able to talk about this. But like, same with fishing, right? Like the best thing for a fish is to be found to be tasty, because then
all of a sudden everybody wants it.
Right?
Yep, everybody wants it. Right. All of a sudden it's in farms. It's anywhere. So how do we get past all this grifting? I mean, how are we going to avoid falling for the next big grift? We've listed some, potential, new next villains, but how can we? I mean, basically we're just basically complaining through this whole episode.
I don't think we can. Yeah,
I don't know if there's a way.
Because it's like elections. Unfortunately, in 4 years, we'll go through the same arguments and debates, and we'll be stuck with this in the same position with two candidates nobody wants that aren't going to do anything for anybody, and we still play the game. We still show up. We still tend to fight it. And the same thing with these villains. You know, we're going to keep fighting these villains and panic buying because of them until we find out that they're not that bad and there's a new villain that we need to worry about, and we should now focus and spend our money on that. It's just our nature. We can't stop. We could try to learn, and maybe some of the wisest, maybe that's why my parents have patience and I don't, you know. I'm probably more affected by panic buy than they are still, because they're old enough that they've seen this
They've
script
seen it
play
all.
out 1,000 times, you know.
Ah, that's interesting. So you think the younger we are, the more passionate we are for panic
Oh yeah, I'm
buys?
gonna miss out on this. And when you're young, you know, the first time you get an invitation to a party and
'Cause
then
this
you
is the
can't go to
opposite of
that party.
FOMO, right? This is the
Yeah,
opposite of
yeah.
FOMO. This is, instead of missing out on something you really want to be part of, this is, I got to avoid the worst thing from happening. So how can I?
Yeah, but we don't do that. We live for today. We live even. This is why we have soda addictions, right? We know that the soda is going to kill us, but today it makes me feel good.
Well, so Wall Street Journal did this, a couple of different articles, and my sister was trying to stop smoking at the time. So the first article came out and said, it was all around this research that people trying to stop smoking, and they found out the biggest motivator for trying to stop smoking wasn't the patch, the gum, just cold turkey or a progression. It was money. So people who got money were the ones who effectively quit the most. And so I did that with my sister. I was like, I read it and immediately I'm like, okay, well, here, I'll write you a check for this amount if you can make it 45 days. I think it was 45 days. And then I'll write you a check. If you make it that more, I'll write you this other check so you get more, right? So I'm giving money as the progression happens. At day 44, she had a cigarette. And she came and told me, she's
Oh
like,
no.
I wish I had it, but I can't tell you I smoked. Da, da, da. And then she was right back to smoking like a pack a day. So I'm like, man, it was close to a motivator, but it's not enough. And then they did a follow up. I wish I could remember the researcher, the professor who did it, but they did a follow up to it, and they said it was all about how humans, we tend to be risk averse. So we tend to, in other words, if we have money in the purse versus investing, we'll definitely do everything we can to protect what's in the purse, even though if we invested more, we would make more, but we tend to just protect what we do have. And so when that came out, I said, oh, I wrote her a check for the full amount, and I said, cash it. She's like, what? I was like, cash it. And I said, if you smoke, you have to give it back. And that
Yes.
was 7 years ago, and she hasn't smoked since.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because, and it makes so much sense that when you have the money, you're like, wait a minute, now that I have it, I am not giving it back because you now have it. So all of a sudden,
Yeah,
the
because if
the
you don't have
line
it, you
of
don't know.
crossing is
If you don't
right.
have
So
it,
it's
like
so
I'm surviving
interesting.
without this money. But if I have to give it back now, holy shit, how am I going to do that?
Exactly. So if you're earning it, you're like, well, if I earn it, fine, but I'm doing fine without it, right? So you're less excited, but to lose something you already have all of a sudden is this whole other thing. And I know not Pink, Dan Ariely, been beat up in his reputation, but he's done a lot of this research as well. I think it's been fantastic. And so it shows us that this big villain, and as we are very averse, it means we have a natural inclination, basically, to go towards the villain. It's almost like society wants a villain and they want to panic buy because it helps us kind of, feel like we're protecting whatever we have built
It's a
in
purpose.
some
It's a
kind of society.
motivation. It's a purpose. It gives us a role, right? Like, and it gives us, because most of our pain, I don't know about you, most of my pain comes from feeling helpless about something, right? Feeling like something's out of my control. And so any time that you can share a villain with someone, and you're giving them some kind of control over the situation now, right? You're giving them something to kick back against. You know, you're giving them something to spit at.
Nice. You heard it here, folks. Hostile dysfunction. And someone told me that we need to come up with music. They're like, you don't have any music to end it or start
Yeah,
it.
there's no
so
intro. That's why no one likes us.
we'll have to like come up with we'll have to come up with some kind of song we can play or do something.
That's what we should do. We should both do air horns with our mouth as the intro. We should, you know, like Ralph at the beginning of the Simpsons movie. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's exactly what it is. All right, awesome. Well, until we find, I think there's definitely some big villains out there. So until next time, we dig in because I'm interested to see what happens down here in Venezuela. If you have seen, our president who ran on trying to stop wars and claims peace has just made the president of Venezuela out to be a pretty big cartel villain. So stay tuned, and we'll find out what happens there.
Maybe he meant bring wars home, bring wars closer to home. Maybe that's what
It's like Russia's too bloody far away, even though it's like Alaska. I never want to.
And same with Iran. Like it takes a whole day for those B-2s to fly over there. It's like it's way too far.
I press the button and then why isn't it happening? So yeah.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?